Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the I Talk Back Sports Show. I am joined by my favorite co-host, Jamal Bonner. Say hello to the people.
Hi, people. What do you mean your favorite?
Well, my only.
Okay.
Okay, so guys, please check us out on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and Instagram and everywhere. Just everywhere you can think at I Talk Back Sports Show. Go ahead and join us, and also just check in for updates as much as you can. Okay, so today we'll be discussing some football, it being the last week of the preseason, and other sports news. Jamal, would you like to give a shout out to the people?
Sure, I'd love to give a shout out to the people. In particular, I'd love to give a shout out to the NFL owners who are trying to expand to an 18 regular season schedule that is unnecessary because teams are already limping through the 16 game schedule and not really doing that well with that. It doesn't make sense to go to 18 games except that it's a money grab. What about you, Barbie?
I'd like to give a shout out for the Cowboys scouting department, mainly Will McClay, for constantly finding gems in the draft, people that we just don't have to give a whole lot of money to, but give us a whole lot of effort. So thank you so much, guys. Keep up the good work. Okay, Jamal, I don't necessarily have a written out read, but a good question I have for you, which may provoke some thought, because we're all about that, is should a fan worry about the financial side of sports, mainly contracts, how much a person is getting paid versus another person? What are you thinking about this?
I think it's honestly none of our business, and unfortunately it's one of those things that with the advent of the protections for the owners with the salary cap, that it is now become something that fans who have really no say, and even sports writers who really have no say and no business in being involved in who's making what, now suddenly feel that they have a reason to give input into who's worth what and what paying somebody is or what it amounts to. It's what the market bears. No one comes to your job and says to you that, oh, wow, here's the department budget. Oh, you're making X amount. Ooh, yeah, you might want to take a hometown. What was that? What is that again? The hometown
discount.
That's right. The hometown discount when your next review comes up. Now, one can say that you're talking millions versus thousands, but it's all relative. It doesn't matter in terms of no one comes to you and says that you need to take a trim to be nice to the department because we can't really and truly afford this based upon this artificial salary cap that was created to prevent owners from overspending, to help them protect themselves. So to me, the financial aspects or the financial details of a player's salary or whatnot really should not be any of our business other than such and such sign for X amount, and maybe even that shouldn't even be a part of it. It should really honestly be player sign X number of years, boom, that's it. What do you think, Barbie?
I totally agree. I think the biggest arguments I get into with people are about the franchise tag, about this person being drafted to this team and having to play as far as the NBA is concerned. I think that all the rules are set so that it does protect both people. And I feel like if the players are feeling that they're getting this huge justice towards them, well, negotiate that next time when it's time to negotiate, and instead of just giving in because you don't want to go sometime without pay. So if you think it's so bad, as a player, then you know what you need to do. But us, as we're here to cheer, to criticize, and that's it. That's all that we're here to do. We're not here to worry about anybody's money because I, haven't gotten my first $1 million check, so I can't tell you what it means. You know what I'm saying? To get paid $1 million,
Right.
That's above my pay grade, and most people criticizing it's above theirs as well.
Exactly, and I think one of the other things, if I may add to it, is especially when you're talking about, let's say, the NFL versus the NBA, which the NBA, it seems to be a bit more of a someone asking for more money seems to be kind of more, it's not as ostracized. You're not as ostracized as you are in the NFL. In the NFL, you ask for more money, and they just turn on you. The league per se, but definitely the owners and so forth. And then it turns into you're hurting your own product by trying to make sure that X people or certain people just don't really stand out. And you also are hurting your product by, in turn, making your fairly somewhat marketable people into these villains. And then it's, well, such and such held out for X amount of money. I'm not sure that I want them to be, let's say, highlighting my product, or even that I think that X and certain person deserved X amount of money, so I'm going to boo them even though they're out here performing. So it's really kind of a very interesting, fickle environment. We'll cover, I think, a part of that later in the show in terms of fickleness with other NFL news. But in the meantime, let's get started talking about some NFL news. And let me start with Zeke and Melvin Gordon holding out. Do you think that they're smart moves on their parts?
I don't want to say what a person should or shouldn't do to get the money that they need. You know what I'm saying? If I could hold out and still keep a job every September when we get a review, I certainly will. But I don't have that protection. And I currently don't have $1 million checks. I'm working on that, but not right now. So I can't really tell a person what they should or shouldn't do. I think everyone should do what's in their best interest. But on a petty level, Zeke saying that he's holding out because he wants to be the highest paid person, allegedly. I equate that to back in the days when I used to play Pac-Man and I would get a high score. And then my sister would get on there, and there goes the high score. Okay.
Yeah.
So titles and things like that. If that's what motivates us, because we want to be number one, I don't know. Maybe that's something you should just prove out on the field. Let me say you're number one, not let money dictate if you're number one or not, Jamal.
I'm somewhat with you on this one. I will look at this and say that I think that they need to reconsider the way that they pay running backs specifically, that their contracts are geared towards just a certain level, as opposed to understanding that running backs really and truly have a very short lifespan. So I can understand, may not agree, but I can definitely understand that the need to make sure that you get as much money as you can in the short time that you will be playing is something that just you got to do what you got to do. And so
what happened to just having certain type of incentives in your contract? You know what I'm saying? If you carry the ball 300 times in a season, maybe you should get an extra $2 or $3 million. If there are no off the field incidents off season, then maybe you can get an extra $500,000. I mean, I know that didn't have anything to do with it. But maybe the contract should be more incentive-laden for the running back, so maybe they can feel that they're getting more instead of just a standard contract.
If you make it incentive-laden, then you start to run into the issues of what happens when they have an injury and they fall short of certain incentives by, like, who was it? Nick Foles, I believe, a couple of years ago missed out on an incentive because of an injury that he was maybe a completion or two or a few yards short, something along those lines.
Life sucks. Yeah.
Okay, Kay. So, with that being said, let me ask you this question. Speaking, since we're going to stay on Zeke for a moment, what do you think about the security guard in Vegas who sought to press charges on Zeke Shove and then turned out to actually be seemingly trying to extort him?
Well, I don't think much about that. Most people out there see when they see different type of celebrities or athletes, they see that as their moment to shine, their moment to get their 15 minutes or 15 seconds, however it goes. And that part doesn't surprise me, not one bit. I would just hope that, my running back wouldn't put himself in that type of situation,
Agreed.
But look who we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does seem to be. Although I will say that his off-field antics have scaled down each year. He seems to be getting better and better, and I can kind of understand kind of pushing aside someone and not knowing really your own strength in that moment and making them fall if that was the case. But I find it slightly humorous that you go from you get an apology or you ask for an apology to realizing that, oh wait, I should ask this fool for some money too. And that then what everyone said in the first place that you should have done, you just didn't do. So now you're coming off looking like really the total bad guy in this situation. So, Zeke, keep your nose clean, please.
Please.
Yeah, please. So let's leave Zeke for a moment alone. So at the beginning of training camp, Alan Hearns was cut. What are your thoughts?
I think there is a lot of good. There's one pretty good receiver we have, and then there's a lot of other receivers that can possibly contribute, to the team. So you can't keep everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I think what they really wanted Hearns was for special teams, if I'm not, or was that Tavon Austin? So, if there's so much other talent that's pretty much equal, you got to set yourself apart. And I just don't feel like he was able to do that, and he was hurt. So I hope he has success somewhere else. It definitely won't be here.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think that the injury really probably set him back a good deal, and there's some youngsters who were apparently injured. One of them was injured last year, and the other one has just made a huge come up. And I guess we'll briefly talk about them a little bit later. But the end of the short of it is, at the beginning of training camp, they looked up and realized that it would probably be in his best interest to try to get on with another team early on. So they did him at least that favor and did it at the beginning of training camp. So Michael Gallup and Tony Pollard, their names have been all over the place. And let me go ahead and add into it the receiver Devin Smith as well. Have you any thoughts on them or any other observations in terms of those three names, or any other names that you'd like to add in terms of what you've kind of had your ear to the ground on during this training camp for Dallas?
Well, Pollard he looks good, but I still want to see him on Sunday, game day, doing the same type of things he's doing in training camp. I don't think that he's an every down back. I don't think he's durable enough or has the size to run the ball, 100 times in a season or 150 times. I think you should use him in certain packages, And Gallup, I think we saw flashes of him last year of really doing well. And I think that Dak is more comfortable throwing him the ball, or has more confidence that he'll actually catch it. So I think that has a lot to do with the success that we've seen in preseason. But then again, it is only preseason.
True.
And on defense, I don't even know where to start on the defense, because we have some really motivated players. You know what I'm saying? I think it's just to make the team. I think they're actually buying into whatever their coaches are selling. They're buying into it, and they're going out there and they're executing, of course, for themselves and their place on the team, and also to make their other defensive players, be proud of what they're doing out there on the field. And it's and they have continuity.
Yeah.
That's such a wonderful word for the defense. They have a lot of that. So what do you think, Jamal?
I am very happy. One of the things that I recall screaming at you about for the last few years, I'm finally getting, is a true wide receiver core. Michael Gallup conceivably could be a number one wide receiver, although we have to remember Amari Cooper is our number one, and that he has been hampered with a little bit of an injury. But Michael Gallup has been looking good. I've been listening to or watching Law Nation, and he's been pointing out Devin Smith and Cedric Wilson. And I think these were two guys that were supposed to be they were rookies last year, and injuries kept one of them out. But this training camp, they've both looked really good, and I think their improvement have been one of the reasons why Hearns wasn't even invited back for training camp, and that they look like some pretty strong youngsters. Pollard looks good. I'm very happy with that. And you lead up to, speaking in terms of the defense, there was somebody who at the beginning of the camp they were talking about was probably not going to make it to the 53-man squad. And this preseason, Taco Charlton has been just a beast. And
I'm into it, but
really?
No,
okay.
No, because I want to see him consistently going out there and doing the things that he did this last game.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to think he's not always out there playing with the first team. Okay,
True.
So I want to see more of him. It just seems like with me to him, he gets a little lost within himself.
Okay,
and he's a first round pick, so we want him to do great. We don't want to bomb out on another first round pick.
Right. That's
so
true.
I think we should wait on him.
Okay. All right, but I am happy that it's someone who is showing some serious improvement before we get to the point of cutting day and it's, oh, gee, I wonder what Taco could have done. That now in his third year that there is really some sign of improvement and that the whispers aren't about, oh, another first-round pick blown. Instead, it feels like it's well, this guy really, it's almost as though something clicked and he's getting it. And that he is causing disruption, which is what we look for. And this is without DeMarcus Lawrence being on the field. And so I'm sure that that's allowing him to get more reps. But I feel a lot more confident about our D-line than I have been in the past. I still want a safety, but my list of wants for this team to really feel like it's a complete team is just, it's shrinking. It's shrinking. So I feel pretty good. We'll do a somewhat comprehensive.
Well, what we'll do is we'll check on Taco each week. How about that?
Yeah, we can do that. We can do that. Yeah. So the position questions, I wrote this up and just curious in terms of what you have seen. Let's start with, we've already talked about receivers, but backup quarterback, White versus Rush.
I think it's Rush, but still Rush to me on any other team would still probably not be a number 2 quarterback. I think that just for instance, looking at, I believe it was the Saints and the Chargers, they have such great backups. They have Tyrod Taylor. They have Hill. The guy. It's just like, wow, these guys could start on any team. And we are saddled with a really third-string quarterback as our second.
Yeah.
We have for years not taken our second quarterback seriously.
Yeah.
And in recent years, it has hurt us tremendously, and it set our team back some years because we didn't have that. We had to wind up spending top picks on it. But we need to take this seriously as well as your cornerback situation. Just throw something at that next year probably. Can you guys? Please?
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I think that the situation with Mike White is going to be unfortunate for him. That I think that it's going to be that he may get squeezed out this time. He looked promising last year, but Cooper Rush just really looks sharp, finally.
And he's inconsistent as well. I mean, 2 years ago, he was like, oh my gosh, last year he took a step back.
Yeah.
We don't know what he's going to do this year, and I hope we don't have to find out.
Yeah, thank goodness Dak started every game last year, but yeah, exactly. So, like I said, we talked about the wide receivers. Tavon Austin, do you see him sticking around or...
Not if he doesn't do anything on special teams, he's not going to remain with this team.
Okay.
No.
All right. Do you see anyone stepping up at tight end besides to take the place of Witten by the end of this year?
No, I think they're probably going to have to go back into the draft to get someone. I saw that they worked out Soups from Texas, but it makes me think that they really don't know what to do at tight end, and that's kind of scary as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that they've only got, and they really honestly should use Witten sparingly. I really don't think that Witten needs to be a full-time tight end at this particular age.
Third downs for sure, but everything else, you need to work your other players for that.
Maybe third down in red zone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, third down, I would say between the 40s maybe, because sometimes that's where we kind of just can't get it going to get onto the other side of the field. I think that will work as well.
Okay. Yeah, I can agree with that. The O-line, are we back to being the best in the league again?
See, and the best. I mean, so what? If we're the best and we don't get to the Super Bowl, what does it really mean, Jamal? I just hate that to be thrown around. Let's get our top picks and out there, get them healthy, and get them consistently out on the field. If we get that, and then we get our running back out there, then we could do better, as an offense. But I think a lot of it has to do with our quarterback and the play calling as well. It's just more than the offense is the first thing, the line, yes.
Right.
But everything else has to go behind that in order for us to get to where we want to be.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Do we have our war daddies on the D-line?
If we've paid our player, right? And if he does differently than most people and get out there and actually play up to his contract and exceed it, then yes, we have a war daddy.
Yeah. Okay.
If not, then we just paid someone
a lot of money.
A lot of money.
Like I said earlier, I feel more comfortable about the D-line than I have in the past, so I think that we actually have some depth, which is something that I think it's finally starting to sink into this club, that you really need the ability to have a rotation on the D-line. That was what our Super Bowl teams had, the ability to allow them to stay fresh as opposed to just keeping them out there for snap after snap after snap, especially when some of these teams that are ball control teams would just run us down and that we'd have these fourth quarter meltdowns. So what I'm looking forward to is that we have a D-line that is just, it's not first team, second team, it's D-line number 4, number 5, number 6, and they're just as good as number 1 and number 2. So that the drop-off is minimal, but more importantly, that we are resting our guys during the middle of some of these long drives that are ridiculous and are doing what we're doing on the other side of the ball to the other team, but just that we're prepared for the ability to rotate our guys in and out. That's what I'm looking for, and I feel right now that we have some pretty decent looking options. I want to pay attention to that Giants game in a couple of weeks and see what happens. Someone said that they think that Saquon Barkley is going to run up 200 yards on us in the first game of the season.
Well, it's interesting that you say that. You were speaking about the extra games and the preseason and all of that. I think that it's important that we have more like in-field, like playing against other teams in the preseason. And one team I would love to come each year for right now is the Rams, because we cannot stop them running on us. You know what I'm saying? And so they're doing something, they know something, they feel something that they can do against us, and they're very successful at that. And I'm not going to say anyone's going to run 200 yards on us. No way,
Yeah.
I just hope he does it. You know what I'm saying? But I think we're so much into the past that we don't pay enough attention to stopping the run.
Yeah, I think you may be right. I mean, that also falls on our linebackers, and so that I think Leighton is probably a fairly good run stopper, he's built for more run stopping versus Jalen, which I think he's more of a coverage linebacker. And so it's going to be one of those things to see that, first and foremost, again, I keep coming back to the D-line and how they perform, but our linebackers have to come in and do their job, slide in and make plays before they get into the defensive backfield, running game that is. So we'll come back to that next week as we get closer to the beginning of the opening of the regular season. So I don't even want to ask you this question, but so NFL players a couple weeks ago were hot about their Madden 20 ratings. Do you have any thoughts on this travesty?
Well, a little bit that I learned while watching Hard Knocks, which we're going to talk about later, is that they send people out to these different practices, and they do whatever their technology is telling them to do. And for the most part, just for instance, if a guy was hurt last season, they're not going to have him rated as high this season only because of he didn't have anything to graft last season. Right. So I think there's a lot of factors in it, but just saying, oh, yeah, that guy's fast, let's put him at 98. That's not how it works.
I haven't played Madden 20, and I think that it's, at the same time, I don't want to degrade the importance of it for people who do play it. I just am sort of scratching my head. Something that you would probably say is, let's just see what their performance looks like out on the field, regardless of what the game says, and that it shouldn't be something that one should, I hope, not take personally. But again, I'm not a Madden player, so again, I'll sidestep this one. And the regular season starts soon, in a couple of weeks, actually. Did you think this day would ever come?
Absolutely not. February, you'd be like, oh my God, September, wow. Oh, it just seems like 3 lifetimes. And it seems like 10 minutes between, September and January or February. It just goes by so fast. So I don't think we need extra games. I'm not saying that, but
no.
It's a long time. It's a long time to get here. It takes a lot out of us.
Well, you're going to have the XFL next season, I believe, in between times, and we'll talk about that more as it draws near. But yeah, it's been a while, and there's been so much going on, and I like that what did briefly take some of the shine off of Dak Prescott questions was the Zeke holdout, and I think that this team thrives on the ability to make headlines in the off season that will keep them in the conversation. That you will sit and say, "Oh man, now what this? Now what that?" And that it almost does not feel for me like football season ended. That it's just the constant questions that surround our team in particular, that each offseason just really just keeps us in the conversation. And so I am very happy to hear that this is coming up. I'm glad to hear that our boy's been working out, and we'll get on that in a minute, and that I look forward to the lack of pageantry that the NFL has for their opening season or their opening week. Like, how do you not have concerts and so forth at various stadiums before the game starts? Like, you don't have fireworks displays. You don't have it. It should be a momentous occasion. Football season has started. Give us something instead of this. Oh, it's football season. Okay.
Yeah.
Here we go. Here's kickoff. No. Give us something to be excited about. Come on now. Okay. So, at this moment, what team are you looking forward to seeing that aren't the Dallas Cowboys for this coming season?
Well, I'm really excited about the Oakland Raiders. I want to see what they are doing. It's because I think their problem has been in the past. It has been I think last year was both offense and defense, but I think offensively they got it together. They have some good pieces there. And then there's the John Gruden thing. So we have our thoughts about him. So it will be interesting to see how he can turn things around, or if he can. So I'm pretty interested in them. And I hate to say it, I think that's all.
I got 2 teams, and I know I'm cheating by doing this, so if you want to add a team, go ahead.
No.
Okay. So I'm interested in seeing what the Chargers do this coming season. I think that with the success that they had last year, but with this whole Melvin Gordon thing, that I'm really curious to see what they're able to do going forward. That are they able to maintain the chemistry, or are they able to be this somewhat exciting team that got so close last year but just couldn't necessarily pull it off in Baltimore of all places? And I'm honestly curious to see what the Giants do this year. And I know it's our rival. Well, I shouldn't say rival, but one of the teams that we play in the NFC East. But I'm very curious to see how long Mr. Manning lasts in the quarterback position. That the rookie looks really good, and I know it's preseason again. I know, but he looks very much like a younger version of himself. And maybe that they'll figure out some way to put the pieces together with Saquon and minus Odell Beckham Jr. And there was another defensive guy they let go that was kind of big.
With Snacks?
Yeah. Like, I'm really going to be curious to see what this Giants team does, and that the regular season ought to be very interesting. So, along the same lines, at this moment, who do you fear is being overhyped? And I think I have an idea of who you might say.
I don't know, but I'm going to tell you that I think the Arizona Cardinals are overhyped.
Wow.
I'm telling you,
okay.
Unless there is a transition between what I saw in preseason and what goes on in the regular season, I think the height of their quarterback might be an issue. This is not college.
Right.
They're a little bit faster here.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm not doubting him. I think he is a great athlete, and I think he has a great, for sure, great college talent.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see how that talent transitions on into the NFL.
Let me piggyback on that and say, because they're not one of my teams, but for the sake of the Cardinals, I hope that they reached out to Doug Flutie and figured out some way to get him to at least give this man some tips, some pointers, or something along these lines, because, I mean, that was like one of the last great shorter quarterbacks. Drew Brees is active, so obviously you can't talk to him, but I hope they did, because Doug Flutie could have done some things if he had been on different teams. But I've got two teams, and I will start with the Cleveland Browns, which I will say definitely are overhyped at this point. Everyone is focused very much on their offense. Their offense wasn't the problem last year. It was their defense. And I don't know that they did much to shore that up, especially when you got rid of Greg Williams, who was a kind of a monster in terms of the pressure defense. And so that was just kind of one of those, why did you do that sort of things. And the other team that I think is being overhyped are the Green Bay Packers. I haven't seen them do anything to pick up their running game. Now, they did get a new offensive coordinator. They got a new coach who was the offensive coordinator for the Titans last year. And he did some things with the Titans that were okay. It was different. But it was still a matter of the Titans had running backs galore. Green Bay doesn't have running backs. They just have Aaron Rodgers and some really good wide receivers, and then that's it. And you still have the problem of you didn't shore up the defense. So I think for everyone yelling about how Green Bay is going to dominate the NFC North again with, I don't know, there are a couple of teams over there by the name of the Bears and the Vikings that are just sitting there improving. And maybe even the Lions. No, the Lions are the Lions.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's still one of those, I think the Packers are overrated this year. So Hugh Jackson thinks that he should be a head coach somewhere else in the future. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, if he's counting the college ranks, then yeah, that's fine. But I don't think anyone is going to take a chance on him like the Browns did. Didn't he come from the Browns?
Yeah, I believe so.
The Browns ownership is very different than a lot of owners. It's an outlier. So no, I don't see him going anywhere. And I'm glad that he has confidence in himself. Mm-hmm. But we need other people to share into that confidence as well. And I don't think it's fair.
I hope you find some way to come up with a head coaching position, even like you said, if it's college. I'm still mad that Lovie Smith is in the college ranks. I believe he should be a pro head coach. But yeah, like you said, as long as he believes, he believes. So yeah, we'll just wait and see.
Okay, so your boy Marshall Faulk, okay?
Oh boy.
I just have to bring this up because first he said if we sign Dak Prescott, then he's going to become a bum, okay? And then they criticized Jerry Jones for signing Jalen Smith, saying that what Jalen has done for the Cowboys versus what Emmett has done is not even a comparison. I'll let you take this first because maybe, yeah.
I think Marshall Faulk is entitled to his position, to his opinion, and I think what really got this a lot more play than it should have is because he went down to Cabo to train Zeke for a spell, and so it then became associated with Marshall said, and it's probably because Zeke said the same thing, and it was, no, Marshall has his own opinion. In terms of Dak becoming a bum, I'm not a prognosticator. I have no idea. We're just, at this particular moment, I think most of us Cowboy fans are living week to week when it comes to Dak Prescott. So I'm not even going to go down that route. I hope he doesn't become a bum, but, we'll see. In terms of the second part of the question, I think that this was the Jalen Smith signing was different because Jalen has he has a fairly decent upside, but he hasn't done a lot, and his contract was, we'll say, team-friendly, and that even as he improves from his injury, I think that there was a recognition of they were loyal to him while he was injured and waited for him to get to playing condition, took a chance on him, drafting him in the I think it was the second round or third round, something like that. And he had a full year and some change to recover. So I think this was kind of one of a contract signing of, you did for me, so I'll take a little bit less because otherwise I may not even be in the NFL if it weren't for you all. So I think that's my feeling on how that contract went down. What about you?
Well, I think that Marshall Faulk is going for the shock jock type of recognition, and I don't respect anyone that goes for that. I think once he went down to train Zeke, that's kind of a personal relationship between two people, and I don't think he should go on national TV and be the big brother, so to speak, and speak on stuff that really, to a certain extent, it really does not have anything to do with him. It's a little personal, and it came across as personal, and we don't want to do personal. So,
no.
As a commentator, you don't ever want to be the type of person when you start speaking, people are like, I don't want to hear anything come out of your mouth. And he's very much heading that way, I'm sure, with a lot of Dallas Cowboy fans.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of us.
Yeah.
So, anyway, moving forward to Hard Knocks, okay? Now, Hard Knocks is been on since 2001, I believe, and now they're on the Oakland Raiders. Okay, so I think John Gruden is a great motivator. He's a great speaker. I really love how he interacts with quarterbacks in the past. So he's definitely a very charismatic person on this show. They did discuss, the AB situation with the helmet, and it seems like he was pretty. He was okay with everything that was going on, And what I really liked is when AB told one of the high school coaches, he asked him, he's like, "Hey, what's up with the helmet?" He's like, "Hey, I only got one head and one neck, so he has to protect it."
That's true. Yep.
When he breaks it down like that, it's just, I think it wasn't the grievances that he filed, because he does want to be safe. I think it was that if I don't get my way, I'm not playing anymore. And at that point, it's like, we're like, who cares? Like, if you don't want to play, then don't play. You know what I'm saying? No one's forcing you. So that I guess it might even been taken the wrong way because I don't know what was said before and what was said after.
Mm-hmm.
But it was interesting. It's only one more episode left. They have a really good tight end. I believe his name is Doss. That's out there. But he was interesting to watch, and they had one of the last chance U players that got put onto the team.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't work out. And that was very unfortunate. And it kind of sheds light on what the actual coaches go through at Last Chance U, what they go through and how they try to prepare these players.
Mm-hmm.
But the players just don't want, either they don't want to succeed or they're just so much into their own BS that they can't mature as men and as football players. Right. So that was pretty good that they showed that as well.
Yeah.
I don't think you watched this show. Is this correct?
I haven't watched this season. I honestly was saving up to do a little binge watching, and that I'll say, let me speak on the Antonio Brown situation very briefly. I was not caught up in the drama of it. I paid attention, but I felt that I wasn't seeing actual quotes attributed to Antonio. What I started reading was that sources said. So I don't, when there's a sources said stuff, I'm just, okay, nah. Not until I hear it straight from the person's mouth. And I think that, honestly, people are accustomed to playing with their own helmets, and that I believe Tom Brady filed a grievance last year, and there wasn't even a blip on the radar about it because he wanted to play with a particular helmet, and he just went on about his business when they turned him down. So right. It is really something that is really being sports writer driven, in my opinion, and because it's the off season that this came up, that it turned into more. I'm not a huge Antonio Brown fan, but I think in this particular case that he kind of got a little bit of a bad shake on something that was really something that was kind of normal. You just want to play with the helmet that you're accustomed to, but for safety reasons, obviously, you're trying to push it and get what you want. I don't think that he actually said that he would quit the team. I think that may have been something that was taken out of context, is my opinion on it. But nevertheless, it's not my team, so I'm not really worried about it. But I am looking forward to sitting down and watching the Hard Knocks episodes. I mean, I still have not gotten over. No one's really done anything as good as the Houston Texans for me from that season with Bill O'Brien. I thought that was so far one of the best seasons. Okay. So let's move on along and talk about some NCAA football.
What are your thoughts on the career of Andrew Luck and also the timing of his retirement?
Andrew Luck. Thank you for bringing that up. I don't agree with what a lot, or I shouldn't say a lot, the vocal minority have said in terms of this injury, that it is someone who has to look out for himself and he has to look out for his future. And I think that it's important to recognize that the number of injuries that Andrew Luck has come back from is a significant amount, and that he's done what he's done. So that being said, it is something that it's unfortunate, and I wish him the best with his further endeavors, and that I unfortunately think that more people should probably do that I don't think it's really necessary to try to come up with an 18 to 20 year career in football, that these guys should probably only be playing about 8 years tops for health reasons. That's just my take on it. The timing of it. It's interesting because the Colts knew. There was a tweet that I read that the Colts had already worked out the financial situation the week before this leaked out that he was going to retire. So they were aware of it beforehand. And I think that is, on the Colts move, I'll say that it was a overly generous to pay off the rest of the contract, the guaranteed money, as opposed to asking for it back. It sucks that this happened in week 3 of the preseason, though. It's absolutely horrible timing, but it can't be helped. It really can't. What do you think?
Well, okay, so Andrew Luck, his statistics 171 touchdowns to 83 interceptions, 23,000 passing yards, and a passer rating of 89. That's great. I mean, that's pretty good for a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
I think that when he came in, he was able to endure all the stress or pressure, I don't know which one it was, of feeling such great shoes of Peyton Manning.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, that's true. Okay, so, just say, for instance, you come along, hey, we want you to take over for Bill Gates. What, me? Oh, okay, wow. But I mean, I think he did a good enough job. You know what I'm saying? I still think that he is a very overrated or overhyped. I wouldn't say overrated. Overhyped quarterback. You know what I'm saying? I do, and I've said this for a long time. I'm on the record of that. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But yes, injuries happen. And sometimes we're offered things and we think we are able to fulfill it, but then we think about it. Hey, I don't want to go into this with knowing how I feel about things and how things have been going and take this money. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I'm okay with that as well. What I'm not okay with is people trying to tell this man what he shouldn't or shouldn't do with his time.
True.
You know what I'm saying? You don't know his life. You don't have to walk in his shoes. And you don't have, you can say what you want, but it still doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? This man has to do what he needs to do for himself to feel mentally and physically ready for the rest of his life.
Right.
And also, that leads into another thing about how the media and maybe even ownership is wanting players to stick around, but players are more sophisticated. Players are more educated. Players have more that is offered to them outside of football. Mm-hmm. So they don't have to just stick with football just because somebody is willing to pay them. They're already paid. So they have the option to do other things in life. And that's what it's all about, is using your platform to the best of your ability for the rest of your life.
Right.
So anyone that has anything to say about this, so what? He's doing what's best for him. And I'm always a proponent for that.
Yeah, if you're not a player or weren't an actual NFL player and you got something to say, kick rocks, is my thinking on it. So,
yes.
Yeah. All right. So let's move along to college football. Yes. So we've got okay, I want to try to hype this up, but I really can't.
There were only 2 ranked teams that were on the schedule. It's a pretty light schedule for the first week.
All right, let me try and hype this. All right.
It's the first week. So that's the only one I found.
Okay, so the University of Oregon versus Auburn.
Okay, so we can just go to the next game.
We have to come up with a prediction here, don't we?
Okay.
Okay.
I'm picking Auburn.
I'm picking Oregon.
Good.
Okay, we have consistency. There we go. All right. So So the next game is the University of Texas, ranked number 10, finally. A little low, I might add. I mean, it's not like we didn't beat Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. I'm just saying. And they're ranked number 3. Why are we ranked number 10? Anyway, playing Louisiana Tech. And the only concern about this game is, will the Longhorns actually have any running backs to field due to injuries?
Yeah, my thing that I worry about my team is we get off to a slow start. We'll lose that first game.
Yeah.
And we've done it a lot.
Tom Herman and slow starts. Yeah, that's just one of those things that goes along with his teams. I don't get it. And it's not one of those, this isn't one of those games where I'm going to just sit there and say, oh yeah, definitely Texas in a blowout. I'm going to say, gosh, I sure hope that we win this game convincingly so that we can stay in the top 10.
Yeah, because the next week we really have a challenge. So I want us to
do as good as we can. Who we play next week?
LSU.
Who?
LSU.
Ellis who? Ellis who? Okay. All right. Yeah, we'll talk about Ellis who next week. So, Barbie.
Yes.
What have you been watching?
Oh my God. So right now I'm watching Veronica Mars.
Really?
Yes, from 2005, like the
Okay.
first time around.
Okay.
I'm watching that. I've watched Peaky Blinders have come back. Yes, I'm so excited about Peaky Blinders. Uh, what?
Nothing. I am just
What's wrong with the
ain't nothing.
Shelbys?
Ooh, nothing wrong with Peaky Blinders. I just haven't had a chance to watch it. That's all.
And
No, no,
okay,
no shade. No shade on Peaky
so
Blinders.
the affair has come back on. I'm excited about that. Power has came back, and next week we have a lot of other stuff coming back for since last year. So it's been a lot of TV going on here. Yeah.
I've spent more of my time actually doing audiobooks, and I've did a couple of Michael Conley books, Bosch books. No, I have not finished the series yet. Before you ask, I'm going to. It's on the list. I've been listening to an interesting book I wanted to very briefly bring up, and that is The Shook One by Charlemagne the God. And it goes into, it's his second book, and this one focuses strictly on mental health, specifically anxiety. And that there are aspects of it that actually really resonated with me, and that I was very surprised to hear some of the things that were said in the book. It is at times explicit, and other times it's just things that you just can connect with, and that I don't know that I will ever listen to. My Mind is Playing Tricks on Me by the Ghetto Boys the same way again. It's a good book. I recommend when you get the opportunity to give it a listen. So, but
Yeah, I saw him on Dr. Phil talking about the book, and he was interviewing him, and it's pretty interesting. I read a book actually called White Fragility, and why white people have. I mean, Jamal, you know, it's actually talking to white people, but it also, if a black person reads it, it gives them a certain understanding about why they are how they are. Some of them, you know what I'm saying? So I thought it was pretty interesting. And let me point out the most powerful thing I think I read in the book. It was, if you don't have a black person in your family, in your neighborhood, as your teacher, as your manager, then you feel like you need a black person for anything. And I can see that. And I don't, you know, but it just really opened my mind. It's a really good book to read if you really want to have a different understanding about race.
Okay. I'll take a look at it. I'll put it into my queue. And
it's free on Kindle Unlimited, so don't buy it.
Ooh. You know, I don't read, I listen.
Oh. Well, you should read sometimes.
On that note, how are your workouts coming?
Ooh, yeah. I'm working on it.
Okay.
I'm working on my workout.
Okay.
I'm working out on working out.
Okay. Okay, well, folks, this is a wrap. Welcome back. And again, my apologies personally for really being the reason that we haven't had any broadcasts as of late. But I'm going to get back on track. We're going to get back on track and put out some consistent content. And as Kay pointed out, you can, at the beginning of the show, you can find us on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook. And I Talk Back Sports. Reach out to us, talk to us. We're more than willing to definitely respond and give you our opinions on things. But in the meantime, everyone have a happy and safe Labor Day weekend, and we look forward to having a semi-comprehensive rundown of the upcoming NFL season next week. So until then, Kay, thank you. Have fun. Bye, y'all.